I'm 68, and yesterday a pharmacist slid a receipt under my pills. Don't go home, run. That night I heard my own family whisper, switch her meds. Make her unsafe, my son swore. It's for your safety, Mom, while my daughter-in-law hissed, sign the papers. So I pressed record and vanished. By noon they'd tried to sell my house without me. Then the real shock. The notary they hired? Wired. Keep talking, he said. Want to know how I turned their trap into a trial? Don't blink. The harbor woke under a thin silver skin. I stood on the back step with tea in my hands, counting the slow bell beyond the point. Me. Oh. The fog lay soft as a lie. I had learned to read both. Years at a helm taught me to listen for what water says before a hull feels it. Now I read tide tables and lighthouse logs and call it ordinary. It is also armor. Tea at dawn, pencil marks on charts, a check of maintenance forms. I oil a hinge, lace my boots, and step into gull-cut gray. I write the day's tide heights on the corkboard, the numbers neat and small. At 68, I move at the speed of attention. Routine keeps me true. I like the clinic before voices stack up. The pharmacy window faces the slips, even fog has edges there. Samira Qureshi slid a brown bag toward me, her ring finger anchoring a cash register receipt beneath its base. Her eyes were calm, the muscle at her jaw was not. She didn't look up, but her voice crossed the glass. Samira, low, please, don't go straight home. Someone is trying to change your medicine. The room tilted. I let my breath be unremarkable. I slid the bag into my tote, lifted the paper corner as if smoothing a wrinkle, and thanked her like nothing had happened. See you next week, I said. She nodded once. Outside, the harbor felt off by half a beat, buoys ticking wrong. I took the long way home past the bait shop and the co-op where traps stacked to the roof. I counted them, because counting can be a ladder out of a hole you can't see. Mrs. Alvarez waved. Her terrier barked at fog as if barking could fix it. I kept moving, letting my feet think while my face did not. The cottage door stuck. It always does. Inside, voices braided low. Caleb on the sofa's edge, Tamsin at the mantel, Ivy on the rug with a pen against her lip. When I stepped in, Ivy snapped a notebook shut, and a manila folder disappeared into the couch with a practiced shove. The room tried to become casual, and missed. Caleb, too bright. Mom, good appointment? Any concerns? In and out, I said, hanging my peacoat. I felt the ceramic whale by the door without looking. The indent my keys make is as familiar as the notch on a cleat. Tamsin offhand, keys on the hook again? You know how we worry. She smoothed invisible lint off her skirt as if smoothing the room. Tea? I asked and went to the kitchen. The kettle searched for its whistle. The paper bag waited on the table like a guest told not to speak. I did not open it. I set cups, measured leaves, rinsed the pot with a pilot's economy. We ate early because politeness likes schedule. Frozen lasagna, a salad that tried too hard. We talked around edges. Caleb narrated markets with the tone he uses when a thing is going badly and posture is all he has left. Tamsin praised a client's taste for light in a hallway without windows and laughed a little too long. Ivy asked about rehearsal and then didn't. When I asked about the new concerto, she said, "It's fine with the voice a girl uses to protect something that isn't." Mom, we saw the stove the other day. Caleb tried, shifting lettuce he didn't want. The knob was turned a bit. Not a big thing. Just, I never leave a burner on, I said. Not unkind, not optional. Tamsin smoothed her napkin. Little slips happen. The world is faster now. Tea, I said, and poured. The kettle sang like it wanted truce. We let the steam fog our faces rather than the truth. The manila folder made a slight ridge in the cushion. You could miss it. I'm trained not to. After dishes and television that spoke for us, after good nights that were only words, I climbed the stairs that know my weight. My room holds what I don't hand over: tide charts, lighthouse forms, a brass compass my husband gave me, his sweater folded in cedar. I sat and listened to the house like a hull in a cross-current, boards shrinking, pipes settling, a faint clink from the vent. No danger, not yet. I set the tote on the bed, drew out the bag, and placed the pill bottle on the nightstand. Its click sounded larger than it was. I unfolded the receipt. Me, whisper, reading, "Don't return to your cottage. Run." I sat because the floor moved. Below, a tight paragraph. "I'm supposed to accept a refill request that isn't yours. Twice this week your profile showed new instructions, upped dose, added sedative. A man called asking me to note cognitive decline. I refused. Please be careful. I'll explain when I can. S." I read it again, slower, as if meaning might change if I gave it grace. "Someone is trying to change your medicine." The same wave hit the same rock twice. I pictured the folder breathing under the cushion, the brightness in Caleb's voice, the way Tamsin held the word worry like a leash. Ivy's glance had been a small flare, brief, honest. I set the receipt beside the compass. On bad nights I hold that compass and remember the weight of steel and the way a ship answers if you ask precisely. My husband used to laugh when I fit the truck into spaces meant for rumors. "Show off," he'd say. I'd ask for his charts. He'd tug my sleeve and say he had none. "You're the chart." His laugh lives in the sweater fibers. Sometimes I press my face there to hear it better. I pressed my palm to the dresser until the wood pressed back. "This house will not be my trap," I told the room. "Fear is a stubborn dog. Mine knows how to heel. It stays, but it doesn't lead." The mirror returned a woman with salt in her hair and steadiness in her eyes. People like to call us deer and suggest shepherds. They mistake softness for weakness because it's cheaper than admitting they're afraid. I am a retired harbor pilot. I still know how to set a course and hold it when wind lies. I folded the receipt into my wallet behind an old license. I checked the window latch not from fear but from reverence for competence. A floorboard answered somewhere, "Houses have languages." I turned out the lamp, then back on. Work first. I counted pills aloud and wrote the number on the label's white margin. I photographed bottle and receipt. I slid the bottle into a different drawer than habit and set my keys in my robe pocket instead of the ceramic whale. I wrote the pharmacy's after-hours number on a sticky note and put it under the lamp base. These were small things. Small things make channels safe. I map tomorrow the way a pilot maps tide. Small marks. Call the clinic from a borrowed phone. Copy the receipt. Ask Samira when the back room is empty. Observe without accusing. Ask Ivy about rehearsal in a way that invites and protects. Watch the manila folder. People who believe you aren't looking will perform. Fog pressed its cheek to the window. Somewhere a buoy corrected itself and found the right beat. I let my husband's laugh pass through like a warm current and then let it go. If there was a test ahead, I had heard the opening bell. I lay down and let the room tick and sigh. Resolve begins quietly. It feels like the moment a big ship starts to answer the helm almost nothing, then a world bending by a degree. Tomorrow would bring its own weather. Tonight I stacked my markers. Note in wallet, bottle moved, keys in pocket, number under lamp, promise made. If the buoys were wrong, I would learn why. If a hand had reached for my medicine, my mind, my life, I would teach it not to reach again. I breathed, steady, like lining up range lights. The fog lay outside, soft as a lie. Inside, I was the chart I needed. I closed my eyes when I was ready, not when the dark asked. The kettle ticked in the dark like a tiny metronome. I woke thirsty, tongue chalk dry, and reached for the glass on my nightstand. Empty. I lay still and listened, the way you listen for a shoal you can't see, breath held, heart slowed. Murmurs rose from below. Not television, not sleep talk. The house was hushed but venomous. I slid my feet to the rug, stood, and tested each board with the care you use when a deck might betray you. At the top of the staircase, I put my palm to the wall. The plaster's grit steadied me. A floorboard-side living room. I moved down one step, then another, toes first, heel hovering, the slow crawl of a pilot ladder at night. Halfway down, words sharpened. I stopped breathing. Caleb, hushed. We don't need her to be broken, just documentably unsafe. Tamsin, precise. Title office first, then conservatorship. Pike can paper the trail. The muted TV washed them in blue. Caleb forward on the couch, elbows on knees. Tamsin at the hearth, ankles crossed. Ivy curled small in the armchair under a quilt. Gideon Pike, Caleb read from his phone. Mobile notary, works with physicians. Crafting compliant files. Discreet. Craft a medical history, Tamsin said, and a precautionary will so we have authority if she wanders. Ivy. Small. Are you sure? Certain, Tamsin replied, voice neat as a column. This is the safe path. When families care, they do it this way, Caleb said. We'll document. Missing keys, misplaced documents, a burner left on, a near miss in traffic. He swallowed. We'll push for a checkup. If her doctor balks, Pike knows a consultation service they can expedite. Shock struck like a bell underwater. I pressed my hand harder to the plaster until the paint printed my skin. Tamsin flipped a page. Book a home assessment. If she resists, that's a data point. We can help the process along if necessary. How? Ivy asked. The quilt drew tight across her knees. Medication, Tamsin said, as if discussing lighting. Switching meds just enough to worry a doctor. She's on a low-dose sleep aid. Increase it and she'll wobble. Pair with a daytime calmer that lists forgetfulness. Not dangerous, impressive. Caleb nodded like a student eager to pass. Hide the keys. Move documents. Set reminders she'll miss. Photograph missed cues. 2 or 3 unsafe incidents a week for a month builds a pattern. The word month ran cold down my back. Within a month, Tamsin said, tapping her pen. We'll have a competency letter. Sooner if the consultation hits. Expedite all steps. Title office opens at 9. We start a seller's packet for the cottage. She isn't safe by the water anymore, that's our line. It's her place, Ivy whispered to the quilt. It stays hers, Tamsin lied. We protect value, unlock her pension, keep her from harm. And after? Caleb asked. Structure, Tamsin said. Conservator, care plan, we manage communications. She'll be relieved. My breath returned in a thin ribbon. I eased one step back up, then another, feeling nail heads through the runner. At the landing, I waited until the blood quieted. If I went to the kitchen for water, I would break the glass just to hear something honest. I went to my room and closed the door to a whisper. I pressed my forehead to the cool wall. Words kept unspooling downstairs. Dates, forms, a schedule of me. I sat on the bed and pressed my palms together until the tremble evened out. When I could trust my hands, I worked. List. Keys already pocketed. Pills counted. Photographed. Relocated. Evidence receipt in wallet. Pharmacy number under lamp. Ali Samira, carefully. Legal find counsel before they find a judge. Movement before dawn. I slid open the dresser. The canvas pouch waited. Passports, one mine, one his, because I like to see his name in print and feel the weight of a life that steadies me. Next, the trust ledger, thin paper, dense truth, title turbine royalties no one in this house has asked about because they do not know to ask. I wrapped both in scarves, placed them in my tote, and added the sea-stained notebook with numbers the harbor answers even at bad hours. The brass compass went in last. I changed into jeans and a sweater, not for style, for silence. I laced my boots with the small satisfaction of competence. Downstairs, paper shuffled, the refrigerator sighed, the television's blue kept brief count. I waited until the stairway breathed Caleb, going to bed. The bathroom muttered. A door closed. Silence set. I shouldered the tote, slid into my coat, checked the inner lining where the envelope of cash lives because prudence is not paranoia when people have said the word medication like a plan. I pocketed my phone, knowing it would be off soon. At my doorway, I touched the frame. Me. V.O. I had guided ships through winter shoals. I could guide myself out of my own home. The hallway was a coil of night. I uncoiled into it, weight placed where the house will forgive me. The stairs received me like a dock I've paid to use. At the bottom, I turned so my shadow wouldn't throw itself into their room. I listened, a long breath from my son. In the kitchen, I didn't risk light. I lifted the kettle off its base and set it in the sink so no accidental whistle would announce me. I left the window shade as it was. Shifting a habit is a flare. I moved the ceramic whale a finger's width to disguise the absence of keys. In the other room, the manila folder's ridge made its small hill in the cushion. I let it be. The front door sticks if you treat it like a friend. Treat it like a task and it cooperates. I pulled the knob toward me to free the latch and eased the door inward by degrees, hand, shoulder, person. Fog touched my face like a mother who knows goodbyes are a luxury. Outside, ropes were damp with dew, gulls rehearsed an argument with the morning. I closed the door until I felt the latch set. I stood in the yard and let the house talk itself back to sleep. Then I took the path along the hedge, cut behind the neighbor's fence, and found the lane that forgets its name halfway to the harbor. My car waited by the curb like an eager dog. I walked past. Cars tell on you plates, cameras, memory, feet are quieter. I avoided the single streetlight's cone. Afterward, the fog owned me. The town smelled of diesel and wet cedar. The boardwalk planks were damp, not from feet. I took it as permission. The Harbor Hotel is 5 stories of discretion. The night clerk wore headphones and didn't look up when I slid a credit card that doesn't carry my most obvious name across the counter. "Early check-in," I said. "Family in later." He pushed a key card and a folded map toward me. The elevator hummed to the 3rd floor. The room held a bed, a chair, a desk, a window. I set the tote on the bed and breathed a breath that didn't have to pass by anyone's judgment. On the desk I arranged the facts: passports, trust ledger, sea-stained notebook, pharmacy receipt, photos of the pill bottle on my phone. I wrote the words I'd heard in a column. Hide keys, move documents, document unsafe incidents, list cottage, unlock pension, mobile notary, craft medical history, precautionary will, switch meds just enough to worry a doctor. Within a month, expedite, title office at 9. I copied the list onto a card from my pocket. Repetition is possession. I texted the only person I dared. I'm at the Harbor Hotel. Thank you for the warning. I won't come by until you say it's safe. I sent it and powered the phone down. Tomorrow I'd buy a prepaid second line. Tonight I would buy quiet. I cracked the window 2 fingers. My hands shook once. Then they didn't. Courage is not a mood. It's a sequence. I pictured the morning downstairs, my bed made, the absence of keys, Tamsin's efficient hands riffling papers, Caleb dialing too fast, Ivy holding the quilt's edge. Some loves don't die. They burrow and wait for better weather. I would give her weather if she wanted it. I set the alarm for 4:30. At 5 I'd walk for a toothbrush, a stiff-backed notebook, a prepaid phone. At 7 I'd call an elder law attorney from the list I keep. At 9 I'd be near the title office outside, a witness, not a defendant. They would try to sell my house for my safety. I would be the tide that says otherwise. I lay down on top of the covers, fully dressed, boots unlaced but ready. The brass compass sat under my palm, a small assurance. The needle pointed where needles point. That was enough. Home is portable once you know what to carry. Wits, records, the habit of writing things down. I didn't leave a note. Notes are invitations for performance. I left a door that closed the way it always has, and a lane that cannot testify. Beyond the hotel, gulls scraped the night with thin silver voices. I matched my breath to their cadence and felt shock quiet into plan. They had a timeline, so did I. They had a fixer. I had the harbor and the truth. I kept watch with the harbor tonight. I closed my eyes and rested the way a ship rests at anchor, ready to move when tide and captain agree. By morning, my hotel room looked like a chart table. I asked the desk to amend the registration, initials only N, W, and paid cash for the rest of the week. I pulled the shade to half, bent a warm cone of lamplight over the desk, and laid out my war room. Legal pads, 2 pens that don't skip, a prepaid phone still in plastic, my pocket recorder, and the sea-stained notebook that steadies my hands when weather turns. Resolve has a smell paper, coffee, salt. I dialed an elder law number I keep for storms I hope never come. When the receptionist transferred me, calm arrived on the line as a man's voice. Measured, razor kind. Abram Velasquez asked me to take my time. I read the pharmacist's warning, then the sentences I heard at 2:10 M. Keys hidden, documents moved, unsafe incidents manufactured. A mobile notary named Gideon Pike, who can craft a medical history and a precautionary will, talk of switching meds just enough to worry a doctor, and a month to expedite a competency letter. He let the silence finish its work, then said, with soft iron, "Abram, they're building a paper river. We'll dam it at the source." "What comes first?" I asked. "Evidence preserved and duplicated. A formal letter from your pharmacist, photos of bottles and pill counts, your audio, time-stamped and backed up. I'll move to block any POA filings and draft anticipatory injunctions. We'll schedule 3 independent evaluations to close the door they plan to open. I can get you time, logs, and the receipt," I said, "and I won't meet them alone. I'll email a secure link. Upload as you gather." When we hung up, I opened the prepaid phone, labeled it Harbor, and called the clinic. A menu tried to herd me. I waited until a person answered and asked for Samira. "Tell her it's the lighthouse lady," I said, then ended the call before names could linger. Next, I called the investigator Abram likes for cases that grow teeth. Jules Park's hello had the bright edge of tide over rock. I gave her names, dates, the title office plan, the conservatorship pitch, the month. She asked for spellings and breathed out like a diver hitting colder water. "Jules, if they breathe near a title office, I'll feel the breeze." "You know the clerks?" I asked. "I know their lunch breaks and which browser tabs they forget to close. I'll start with title pre-check pings and county filings, then pull credit flags. I'll also look where Tamsin sells her better stories." I set my recorder in the lamp's circle and spoke like a pilot filing a log. Date, time, my name, purpose. I read the receipt. I read the lines from the stairs landing, even the chill between them. The red light steadied me. This would be my new sextant angles measured in minutes and metadata. The secure link arrived. I uploaded the audio and the receipt, then photographed the pill bottle with its current count and the label's tiny margin where I wrote that count last night. I wrote a sworn declaration that stuck to what I could prove: location, time, phrases, no color added. By mid-morning, Jules called back, voice accelerated by news. "You were right about the gallery. Tamsin uses a shadow seller handle tied to her shop's IP. I'm seeing heirloom pieces listed after consigners complain the originals went missing in transit. Screenshots incoming." I repeated for the recorder. Tamsin quietly fencing heirloom jewelry from other seniors. "There's more," Jules said. "Caleb, fired 6 months ago, severance thin. I'm seeing a personal loan for roughly $120, with late fees stacking bookie code words and messages. And calls from his number to 3 firms that advertise fast-track conservatorship. I'll pull the ads for context." A second later, pharmacy angle. 2 refill requests on your profile this week with notes reading dose adjustment per spouse. "You don't have a spouse." "I do not," I said. "Pull the audit trail. We'll ask Samira to print the backroom log." "We'll get it," she said. "Give me 2 hours." At noon, Abram called to set our order of march. First, a pharmacist statement on letterhead. Second, notice to your primary that medication changes require your in-person consent. Third, courtesy notice to the title office that your parcel is at risk for fraud. I'll file an injunction today to freeze any POA or guardianship attempt for 72 hours, renewable. I'm also scheduling those evaluations. And if they try to accelerate, we preempt, calm, then fast. Keep originals with you. After the call, I opened the trust I've kept like a lighthouse oil, can quiet, steady, sufficient. I phoned the bank that manages my silent partner royalties from the title turbine patent. Authentication took a few questions only I could answer. Then I asked for the current balance, a 5-year disbursement summary, and a 12-month projection. The officer went quiet the way numbers make people reverent. Bank officer, quiet awe. "Mrs. Whitaker, the royalties are substantial." Me, smile. Good. Justice is expensive. We arranged couriered statements, a letter confirming that spending authority is mine alone, and alerts on any third-party inquiry. I ordered 2 retainers, one to Abram's firm, one to Jules, each under a neutral case identifier. I needed armor to match the plan. I walked 2 blocks to a barber shop that does not fuss. "Short," I told the barber. Honest. Hair fell like old net. The face in the mirror looked like the woman who rode winter crossings without apology. From there, I bought a navy peacoat cut for people who lift rope. Shoulders right, weight right. I felt my spine remember itself. Back in the room, I practiced reading timestamps aloud. 13:14 hours, adding exhibit list. 13:16, photographing pill counts. 13:18, uploading audio with checksum. The cadence calmed me. I added 3 boxes to my pad: capacity, letter call, log, refill forgeries, trust statements, and shaded the ones already in hand. Jules's packet arrived by secure link at 2. I opened it like a captain opening weather. Screenshots of Tamsin's shadow profile listing a sapphire brooch 48 hours after a consignor reported hers lost in transit. Caleb's HR termination notice with the date readable under redactions. A credit report showing a $120,000 obligation coded as personal loan, delinquent. Phone records. 3 recent calls from Caleb's number to out-of-county clinics that market capacity letters with durations and timestamps. I read the packet to the recorder so the record would carry both ink and breath. The pattern was clear as range lights snapping into line: motive, method, momentum. Abram texted the injunction draft at 15:22. Review now, filing at 1,600 on consent. The document was tight as a good knot, asking the court to enjoin any filing, execution, or representation of a POA or guardianship concerning me for 72 hours, renewable, to require 24-hour notice to counsel of any related attempt, and citing the pharmacist's forthcoming statement, my audio, and the call logs as prima facie evidence of intended fraud. I signed electronically. A minute later, a clock stamp confirmed receipt. The courier arrived at 15:47, heavy envelope, heavier numbers. I scanned and uploaded the trust statements, then placed the originals in a folder labeled with today's date. The bank officer's letter sat on top, a clean line stating that no third party has access or view rights to my accounts. I called the clinic again from Harbor. Samira answered, breath low. We set a dawn meeting at the back entrance for a printout of the audit trail and, if she felt safe, a letter on letterhead describing the forged refill requests and the call she'd received to insert cognitive decline into my chart. We'll keep your name protected as long as possible, I said. She exhaled yes. By late afternoon, the room had a beat: record, upload, cross-reference, water, breathe, plan again. I set the camera on the sill to take hourly stills of the street. The prepaid phone stayed on for allies. My personal phone stayed dark. I ate crackers with cheese and called it fuel. At 16:07, Abram's text blinked. Filed. Temporary shield in place. He rang 3 minutes later. The clerk has our notice on your parcel. If they try to start a seller's packet, we'll hear. Court's open early tomorrow if we need a judge. Thank you, I said, and let the next sentence carry my center. Me. They think I'm drifting. I am charting. He let the words sit like a small harbor after weather. Hold course, Nora. I walked the pier at dusk to let wind take what it could. The peacoat held. A trawler coughed against its lines. A bell buoy rang the right note. I returned to the room and staged tomorrow's run. Tote by the door. Recorder charged, pens tested, the envelope of originals, the pad with boxes waiting to shade. I slid the compass into my coat pocket for weight and kindness. At 1900, I clicked the recorder on again. Status: counsel retained, PI active, injunction filed, trust verified, title office alerted, allies in place. Next waypoint: meet pharmacist at 6, obtain audit trail and letter, deliver to counsel by 1000, monitor title office, maintain chain of custody. I turned off the lamp and left the shade half open. The harbor's gray light seeped in like quiet morale. I slept in watches, waking to check the clock, then closing my eyes when the minute hand said I could. When the alarm sounded at 5, I swung my legs to the floor with a pilot's muscle memory. Before sleep, I did one more thing well. I printed labels on stationery X high bit A through X high bit F and affixed them to sleeves so chain of custody wouldn't be rumor. I wrote date, time, and place on each and left a line for a second signature when I handed items to counsel. I practiced the language with the recorder running. Received and sealed by Nora Whitaker. 1941 hours. I ticked the kettle twice to mark seconds and watched the timestamp move like a star across night. Steady. Noon struck bright and hard, the bay throwing back light like hammered tin. I walked into the yacht brokerage with my peacoat open and a clipboard under my arm, a retired pilot pretending to be a practical buyer. On the glass wall, a photo showed a research skiff running through chop. I pointed and told the receptionist I wanted something with a work deck and a hull that forgives mistakes. My voice was friendly, my spine was a keel. The broker Reese met me with forearms and optimism. He led me past framed charts to a modest skiff on a trailer. 20 feet, self-bailing deck, low house, welded mounts on the transom. Scientists like this one, he said. Easy to clean, takes a bump. I'm not gentle, I said. Show me how she answers at slow speed. While he fetched a spec sheet, my prepaid phone thrummed. Jules. Caleb and Tamsin just parked. Title office next door. Clipboard, briefcase. Intent obvious. Abram 2 minutes out with a notary. I smiled at Reese, handed back the sheet. I'm going to look at the lobby light from outside, I lied, amiably. He nodded and kept talking as I slid into the breezeway the brokerage shares with the title office. Through the glass I saw the white counter and 2 clerks. Caleb and Tamsin stood dress-polished, the choreography of people trying to look like policy. Jules leaned at the brochure rack pretending to read flood zone guides. Abram arrived in a gray suit that looked slept in on purpose. Beside him, a neutral notary with a leather portfolio. I sat near a fern. The lobby hummed copier throat clearing, a phone chirp, shoes on carpet. Next, please, a clerk called. Caleb stepped up with his reasonable smile. Good afternoon, he said. We're here to open a seller's packet for a family property. The homeowner isn't up to details, so we're handling preliminaries. Temporary authority. Parcel number? The clerk asked. Tamsin slid a page across the counter, my cottage address printed neat, my name typed above it as if it had already been moved off me. Her manicured finger rested on the lot line like a stake. Do you have the owner present, a power of attorney, or court orders? The clerk asked. We're finalizing those, Caleb said smoothly. This is just to get valuation moving. For her safety, we want to make sure title is clean. They were good at tone. They had rehearsed. I stood. My boots made no sound on the carpet. I laid my palm to the glass so I could feel it vibrate when voices rose. I'm Nora Whitaker, I said. Throats clicked the sound of a dropped coin. This is my parcel, I continued, even. And I have counsel. I gestured. Abram did not smile. The notary did not blink. Jules shifted a half step. Her line of sight cleared to the clerk's keyboard. Caleb turned, mouth searching for a setting. Mom, he said. Then to the clerk, she's here, but she's not well. We're trying to prevent problems. I raised my phone and tapped play. Last night's truth filled the glass room, clean and small. Caleb. Hushed. We don't need her to be broken. Just documentably unsafe. Tamsin. Precise. Title office first, then conservatorship. Pike can paper the trail. A printer stopped mid-whir. I let the next line hang like fog in sunlight. Switching meds just enough to worry a doctor, Tamsin's voice said from my phone. A door marked manager opened. The title officer stepped out, file cabinet solid, eyes of someone who has watched cousins fight over a cul-de-sac. What's going on? He asked, tone neutral. Abram passed him our injunction and a letter on firm letterhead naming my parcel and requesting any attempt be logged and suspended without court direction. The officer read fast, then slower. Title officer, without court documents we proceed nowhere. Caleb's jaw flexed. Caleb strained. She's confused. Me. Confused people don't hire counsel before breakfast. Tamsin's eyes had the flat shine of a window nearest a storm. Tamsin. Low. You're making a scene. Me. Even. No. I'm making a record. Now. The officer nodded once. He turned to the clerk. Log the incident, he said. Note presence of owner, counsel, and notary. Audio played by owner concerning alleged planned medical manipulation and guardianship. Scan the injunction and attach to the parcel. Flag for supervisory review. The clerk typed, each keystroke a nail. I watched the screen reflected faint in the glass. Owner present, counsel present, audio submitted, attempted seller packet, no authority, hold. Behind us, the lobby stopped being small industry and became an ear. I clicked the recording off. The officer looked at me, and then at my son and daughter-in-law with the clean impatience of someone who knows paperwork is not a sacrament. "We're done," he said. "You're welcome to return when you have orders." He handed Caleb the form he had tried to fill, now a sheet of questions with blank lines. Caleb squared his shoulders against a wind he couldn't name. "Mom," he said, reaching for a private tone, "let's talk about this somewhere else." "Not today," I said. Tamsin shifted to concern with surgical speed. "We were only thinking of your safety," she said. "The water, the stairs, your memory." "The water has kept me alive," I said. "The stairs know my weight. My memory recalls what you plan to do with my medicine." Jules watched the room's reaction. Strangers listening harder because the details were plain. A story had shown its spine. Abram cleared his throat. "We request copies of the lobby log," he told the officer, "and a receipt for the file attachments." "Of course," the officer said. The clerk printed, signed, and stamped date, time, clerk ID, parcel number, summary. The notary stepped forward and, at my request, notarized my declaration that I had played audio in staff presence and asked that no action be taken without orders. The seal landed with the quiet authority of a ship's bell in fog. Caleb tried again. "This is embarrassing," he said. "We're family." "I am family," I said. "You're petitioners." He opened his mouth. Tamsin touched his sleeve. For an instant I saw the life they wanted, paper replacing care, signatures doing the work of love. It would have been simple if I had been the woman they needed me to be. Tired, credulous, grateful for supervision. I am not. The officer handed Abram the stamped log copy. "It's in the system," he said. "Any staff will see the flag. If anyone calls or appears claiming authority, they'll be directed to counsel and the court." "Thank you," I said. Strength returned to my knees the way it does after you clear a narrow channel. The lobby found its hum again at a new pitch, whispers, paper weather, bodies adjusting to a story that decided not to be quiet. We left as we had come, not a pack, not prey. In the breezeway, the sun made the tile shout. The gulls were loud enough to mimic comedy. Jules walked beside me, eyes on the reflections. "That line about breakfast," she murmured. "Keep it." "I intend to," I said. The notary peeled off with a nod. Abram checked his watch. "We'll file a supplemental," he said. "Attach the log, the notarized declaration, and the audio. Today wasn't victory, it was refrigeration. We've put the meat in the cold." "Good," I said. "Let appetite meet time." Across the breezeway, Reese waved from inside, miming a steering wheel. I went back for the alibi I no longer needed. "She's a beauty," he said, flipping to a page of tidy numbers. "We can do a short water test tomorrow." "Let's schedule," I said, and wrote a time. The spec sheet slid into my clipboard, a harmless page above heavier ones. While he copied my license, the prepaid phone thrummed. Jules, local stringer, caught the lobby pause. No faces, but he recorded the clerk stamping the log and your record line. "Expect a whisper by evening," I texted back. "Let it whisper. We'll speak later." Outside, Abram waited with the calm of someone who understands courts and tides. "Eat something," he said. "Then go be seen by strangers who owe you nothing and will therefore see you clearly. Visibility is useful." "I'll sit on the pier and count fenders," I said. "Perfect," he replied. "We'll keep the next move boring and legal." Caleb and Tamsin emerged, masks on but cracked. They passed with eyes set on a middle distance where consequences wait. Tamsin did not look at me. I did not offer anything she could mistake for permission. We headed toward water. Noon noise chased us down the breezeway, the kind that says a story will have feet by 5. I breathed salt and paper and let a smile happen. There is mercy in knowing a fight's shape. It narrows the world to what works. On the pier, I did what Abram ordered. I watched strangers step on and off boats, adjust hats, carry coolers, tie clumsy cleat hitches, and laugh when a line fetched them up. The harbor offered its old lesson: balance what you want with what water allows. Behind me, in a lobby with glass partitions, a log entry cooled a hot plan. I touched the compass in my pocket and let the needle insist on north. The tide ran steady beneath everything. Then I rose and walked back into the day I had just made harder to steal. Enough. I turned the hotel's smallest conference room into a wheelhouse. A thrifted webcam sat on a stack of lighthouse logs. The ring light haloed the lens, and beyond the glass, harbor lights pricked the night like patient constellations. I taped a handwritten title to the wall behind me. A harbor mother speaks, then took one breath the way I used to before clearing a narrow channel. In Hold, Decide. Good evening, I said to the red dot. My name is Nora Whitaker. I'm 68, a retired harbor pilot, and tonight I'm going to set out the facts that changed my life this week. I will speak calmly. I have documents, I'll show them. And if my voice shakes, it's only because I prefer wheelhouses to webcams. I let the smallest smile steady the room. Me, I piloted tankers through squalls. The storm tonight is paper and lies. I held up Exhibit A, the pharmacy receipt, sealed in a clear sleeve. This was slid under my pill bottle by a pharmacist who risked her job to warn me. I angled the page to the lens. The print was dark enough to read. It says, "Please, don't go straight home. Someone is trying to change your medicine." I let the line breathe. I did not go straight home. Comments flickered on the edge of the screen, timid as minnows. "Bless you for speaking. We're listening, Nora. Show the proof." I nodded and placed the sleeve on the table, label outward, Exhibit A. Exhibit B, I said, opening a folder. Refill audit trail. Twice this week, forged requests were entered on my profile to adjust my dose upward and add a daytime sedative. Not by me. Not by a doctor who had seen me. 2 flags here, date and user code. I held the printout so the camera could see the dark squares. My pharmacist refused them. She also got a phone call asking her to insert the phrase cognitive decline in my chart. She refused that too. The chat grew bolder. Retired nurse here, sedatives plus daytime calmers cause falls. Teacher. My aunt went through this. Deckhand. Name the tactics and we'll remember them. I read without reading, letting the swell lift me. Exhibit C, I said, tapping another sleeve. A call log showing calls from my son's number to 3 clinics that advertise capacity letters, dates, durations. I slid it next to B. Exhibit D, the title office's incident log from noon today, stamped, showing an attempted seller's packet on my cottage by 2 relatives with no authority. I placed the stamped page like a hull laid true on blocks. You'll notice a line here. Owner present, audio submitted, hold pending court orders. We'll get to the audio. The viewer count ticked upward, 200, then 4. Names I knew from the co-op scrolled past with anchors for avatars, then strangers, teachers, line cooks, a retired ferry captain who typed like he spoke simple, strong. Say their names or keep them private? Someone asked. For now, I'll keep the names private, I said. Courts are precise. Will be too. I pulled my hair behind my ears and leaned in. Last night at 2:10 a.m., I woke and heard a conversation. I recorded parts of it. You'll hear a plan to hide my keys, move my documents, and stage unsafe incidents so that I look incompetent on paper. You'll hear a line about switching meds just enough to worry a doctor. You'll hear a name. A mobile notary who can craft a medical history and a precautionary will. After the clip, I'll show you the injunction we filed to stop any guardianship or power of attorney from being rushed through without my knowledge. The chat stilled into attention. Night pressed its face to the window. I clicked play. The room filled with my son's voice, smaller through the mic and more dangerous for it. We don't need her to be broken, just documentably unsafe. Then Tamsin's efficient, the way a cabinet closes. Title office first, then conservatorship. Pike can paper the trail. A beat, and the line that had frozen my blood. Switching meds just enough to worry a doctor. I stopped the clip before my own breath could be heard. Silence rose out of the speakers and stood between us. The comments broke open. I'm a pharmacist. This happens. Public defender here, we see forged safety notes all the time. Fisherman, you say it, we'll back it. The count jumped again, 700. Then a wave, 1,000. I steadied the camera and spoke the way I used to call bearings. Today, with my lawyer present, I went to the title office. Relatives attempted to open a seller's packet for my cottage, claiming temporary authority. The title officer refused without court documents. He logged the incident. That log is Exhibit D. I held it up, not shaking now. When I say paper and lies, this is the paper. We will not accept the lies. The prepaid phone on the table lit with a call. I glanced at the number, then back to the lens. I'm going to answer a call. If it is who I think, this will be brief and on topic. I swiped. Caleb, you're live, I said. Mom, he said, breath tight. Stop this, people are watching. Good, I said. Do I have your permission to play the rest of the midnight audio? That recording is illegal, he snapped. In our state, one-party consent, I said. Do I have your permission to play it? He tried another door. You're not well, Mom. Caleb, I am showing documents to the community I've served for 40 years, I said, calm as a bearing line. If you want to correct anything I've said, do it now. Otherwise, I'm going to continue with evidence. Silence. The line clicked dead. The chat surged in his space. She's not alone. We're here, Nora. A second call blinked. I answered. Tamsin, you're live. Her voice arrived, packaged in patience. We were protecting you. By selling my house, I said, not unkind, unbending. Why did you start a seller's packet at noon without authority? We were only trying to get title information, she said. For safety. Your memory. Memory enough to hire counsel before breakfast, I said. Memory enough to count pills and take photos. Memory enough to hear switching meds and write it down. You're making us look like villains, she said, the shape of her breath audible in the receiver. I'm holding up documents, I said. If you want to bring your documents, there is a court that welcomes you. The line went flat. The chat behaved like weather again, gusts, then steady wind. Union tug, whole crew watching. Choir director, Nora, we're with you. Retired judge, that title log is gold. I set the phone face down and returned to the lens. If you've joined late, I said, I've shown a pharmacist's warning, 2 forged refill requests, a call log to capacity letter mills, and a title office incident log that froze a fraudulent seller's packet. You've heard part of a recording. I've also filed for independent evaluations because the truth likes clean light. A notification bloomed in the corner. The local journalist who covers city meetings had mirrored the feed. We've been picked up, I said to the room. Good. More witnesses. The count ticked again, and the comments grew teeth and tenderness at once. Put the templates online so folks know what to file. My mother is 82. Tell me what to watch. Fisherman's wife, write the words, cognitive decline in your phone so you never forget how they sound when used like a crowbar. I held up a laminated card I'd made an hour ago. Signs, I said, and read it to the camera. 1. Someone insists on changing your meds without your consent. 2. They hide your keys or move your papers and call it helping. 3. They call clinics that sell capacity letters. They try to open a seller's packet to get information. 5. They use the phrase, for your safety, when what they mean is, for our access. The chat began to self-organize, teachers offering to edit, a nurse proposing a hotline, a tug captain volunteering a union hall. I took screenshots as they scrolled. I said out loud that I was taking them. Receipts, I said. We keep them. Another ping, a message from the paper. We're embedding your stream. Can we interview you tomorrow? I typed yes with 2 fingers. A second window showed our harbor map with hot points rising like fish under a light. It looks like the coastal towns are listening, I said. I'm grateful. I'm also sorry that so many of you know these tactics already. I set down the cards and leaned forward. No one should have to become a paralegal to age in their own home, yet here we are. The way through is public. Abusers, whether they mean to be or have talked themselves into a story, depend on silence and on the private shame of the person they target. We are going to refuse both. I opened the injunction on screen, names redacted, and explained the steps. Emergency filing, notice to the title office, independent evaluation scheduled, the role of a notary, what a lobby log means. I did not dramatize. The truth has its own color. When I paused, the harbor answered. A horn far out in the dark called once, low and sure. "That one's the tug, Miriam," someone typed. "She's with you." I smiled into the lens the way you smile across a wheelhouse, small, true. "We're past an hour," I said, glancing at the corner clock. "I'll close in 5. Before I do, 2 promises and 1 ask. Promise 1, I will continue to post documents. Promise 2, I will not name anyone who hasn't been named in a filing. The court gets the first draft, the community gets the second. My ask is simple." I held the receipt again, its paper gone soft at the fold. "If you have faced this, write me. We will not be quiet. Tell me what worked. Tell me who helped. If you are a pharmacist, nurse, social worker, title clerk, attorney, judge. Send me what the public needs to understand. If you are someone's grandchild and you are afraid you are being used as a mask, come to the light. It's safer here." The comments became a chorus. Emails offered, pro bono hours pledged, a retired CPA promising to teach elders how to read a credit pull, a pastor offering a room for weekly clinics. The ferry captain posting a single word, standing. I straightened the stack of exhibits and looked one last time at the harbor lights behind me. "I won't ask you to trust me," I said. "I've shown you pages and played you voices. Trust the documents, trust the procedures, and trust yourself when something ticks wrong in the room you live in. Thank you for spending your evening making the water safer for all of us." I reached for the mouse, then remembered the thing that always matters at sea. "One more," I said, meeting the lens. "This isn't a feud. It's a boundary. Boundaries keep ships off rocks. We're drawing them in ink tonight." The red dot winked out. The ring light cooled. The harbor remained. I sat a moment with my hands folded, and the quiet louder than any horn. Then I saved the stream, backed it up twice, and emailed Abram the link and screenshots of the chat pledges. The phone buzzed with a message from Jules. "You trended in 3 towns," the Chronicle mirrored. "Sleep with the compass in reach." I smiled. I wrote back. "I." Outside, a gull cried like a hinge turning. I turned off the light and left the room as I had found it, except for the line I had thrown out into town and the hands that had thrown theirs back. The corridor smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and triumph. In the elevator mirror, I saw a woman who had decided to weather like a harbor does, open and lit. I tapped the compass in my pocket and let its weight finish the sentence my voice had begun. The Lighthouse Cafe smells like cinnamon and sea salt when the door opens. Daylight is clean and direct, gulls stitching the air over the breakwater. I take the corner table that sees the harbor and the road back to a wall, eyes on exits. Tea steadies my hands. Today the room feels safe enough to start telling truth. Ivy arrives, hood up, hair in a quick knot, eyes rimmed red. She sees me, falters, and keeps coming. She slides into the chair, knuckles white around her phone. "Ivy," I say, and let her hear the welcome. She nods, bites her lip, and sets the phone between us like a living thing that needs care. I wait. At sea, you learn that rushing a tide never makes it turn sooner. She swallows. "I made a mistake," she says, voice down to threads. "2, really. One of them is a person." She laughs without humor. "I don't know how to do this." You start with the truest sentence you can manage. Her fingers unlock the phone. The truest is that I'm pregnant. The word sits between us, enormous. 9 weeks. I breathe and let the tea lift. I don't reach for her with hands. I reach with quiet. "Thank you for telling me." She searches for a size. "It's my teacher, my cello teacher. She watches my face like weather. He's married." The cafe goes silent in me. Then the sounds return so my voice can pass. "That should never have happened," I say. "The power was his to refuse. He failed you." Tears rise and she forces them back. "I thought I was the grown-up because I'm 18. It felt sophisticated. Then it felt small and wrong." "You're a student," I say gently. "He had authority and misused it. We'll keep this non-graphic, safe, and honest. We'll also get you care." She nods. "I don't know what I'm going to do about the baby yet." "You don't have to know today," I say. "You'll have options and time." I let the words set like a good anchor. "There's something else." She wipes her nose. "They're going to throw me under the bus," she says, anger finally carrying her. "They said if your plan blows up, I should take the blame, that people will forgive me because of the baby and because teenagers are messy. She looks up. Ivy, small, they said I could take the fall. Teenage mistake sells better than elder abuse. I let heat move through me and cool. They forgot who raised a harbor pilot, I say. Not loud. Very clear. I recorded them, she says. After Dad said if everything goes wrong, it will look good if I own the jewelry thing. I never touched your jewelry. They wanted a scapegoat, I say, your face to close their file. I have texts. She taps the phone. They planned how to tell people I stole the bracelets. Mom drafted for Dad. Ivy's been making impulsive choices. We love her, but there's a voice memo. She scrolls, presses play. Caleb's voice spills. If the heat comes, we say Ivy tried to pawn the pieces. Teenage mistake. We're heartbroken. Then Tamsin. It sells. Everyone has a niece like that. I nod. What else? A calendar, she says. I marked every time they met with anyone since you left, locations, durations, and fights. I recorded some about the mobile notary and the dose bump. Send all of it to me and to my attorney, I say. Then we decide the next safest step. She studies me, measuring whether safety and truth can share a room. Will you hate me? Me. No. I will teach you. She exhales, shoulders unnodding. Ivy. Exhale. Then I'll tell the truth. The waitress brings scones we didn't order. Ivy eats like a person coming back to shore. Between bites, she forwards files, voice memos, screenshots, the calendar. I watch them land in my inbox like gulls finding posts. I open a screenshot. Tamsin's text glows clinical. Seller packet first. If she resists, we note agitation. I'll move jewelry before appraisal. Easier to track if we tie losses to Ivy. Another thread shows Caleb, called Pike. He can start files if we get incidents logged. Be quick. She's craftier than we thought. Further down, Ivy's single reply, don't, hangs like a prayer. Do you know what you're stepping into? I ask. Courtrooms, depositions, cross-exam. She looks at the harbor, then back. I was small when I stayed quiet, she says. I'm done. I take her hand. Testifying will shift the ground under your life. Some friends will peel away. Adults who should have protected you will speak over you, but you will not be alone. I will stand with you. We'll also set protection so they can't move money or invent stories while we speak. She squeezes back. Okay. Softer. Grandma, thank you. Finish the scone, I say. While she eats, I forward the files to Abram with a note. From Ivy scapegoat plan, Pike refs, dose bump, calendar. I ask him to call with immediate shields for Ivy and for the evidence. I dial Abram and put him on speaker. He answers on the first ring, voice steady as tide. I summarize. He says, First, Ivy, I'm sorry adults failed you. Second, thank you for your courage. Third, we're building you a corridor so truth can walk. He lists measures. Preservation letters to the gallery and bank. Hold notices to the title office. A request that the court admonish against retaliation. A sealed filing for her pregnancy so gossip can't be weaponized. A counselor referral. And safety planning. Will I have to face them? Ivy asks. Not today, Abram says. We'll stage it so the first time you speak is in a room where the rules matter and the record is permanent. Until then, no solo conversations, no replies without screenshots, and no meetings without a witness. Copy, she says, almost smiling. We also need to protect your phone's contents, he adds. Nora, I'll courier a write blocker and have Jules mirror the device full image, metadata intact. Ivy, that means we copy your phone exactly so no one can claim fabrication. Okay, she says. Abram continues, I'm filing a notice that any guardianship inquiry will be linked to witness intimidation. Jules will pull Pike's client appearances in local civil files. Thank you, I say. Send a sworn declaration from Ivy tonight, he adds. Stick to facts, who said what, when, where. We'll append the recordings. We end the call. Ivy sits straighter. The cafe looks less like a confessional and more like a command post. I don't know how to tell Dad I'm choosing you, she says, but I think I just did. You chose the tide that won't lie, I say. She laughs, watery. Do you remember teaching me a cleat hitch? You said, "Trust the knot, not the grip." I think that's this. It is, I say. She hands me her phone. Read the memo called Tuesday. I play it. Tamsin's voice cool, compiling lists what to move, what to hide, which neighbors will vouch for forgetful Nora. Then the colder line. If Ivy slips, we pivot. She's already impulsive. I stop the file and meet Ivy's eyes. You were never their plan, I say. You were their exit. Not anymore, she answers. We pay. On the seawall, someone has chalked a word, boundaries. We walk toward the museum where my new apartment waits. Ivy matches my pace like she used to when she was small. I think about the corridor Abram promised, the mirror Jules will make of her phone, and the way a courtroom will look when Ivy lifts her chin and names what happened and who planned to make her a story that never belonged to her. At the corner, she stops. "Can I stay with you tonight?" she asks, so I can breathe and write the declaration without Mom knocking. "Yes," I say. "I have sheets that smell like cedar and a lamp that forgives midnight." She nods. "I'll text Mom that I'm at rehearsal." "Text that you're safe," I say. "Leave the rest blank." We turn the corner, and the harbor opens like a hand. We just walk, two people learning the oldest pilotage, how to carry each other through a narrow passage without scraping the sides. The air tastes like cinnamon and clarity. I breathe it in and keep walking. The county courthouse rose from the square like a verdict oak panels, pew-straight benches, and light cold enough to keep tempers honest. We cleared security to a full gallery. I touched the brass compass in my pocket, felt its stubborn north, and took the aisle seat where I could see everyone's face. The storm's last piece had dropped the night before. Jules called from her car, wipers ticking like a nervous metronome. "Confirmation," she said. Caleb prepaid Gideon Pike cash for medical files and a safety letter. Diner off Route 7, booth by the ice machine. I have timestamps, ATM footage, and plate cams. Delivery to Abram in 10. At my museum apartment Ivy slept. Jules had mirrored her phone with a right block. I flattened my palms on the table until the pulse slowed. Then, we are where we need to be. More than that, Jules added. An agent reached out. The Bureau has been working Pike for 6 months. 10 minutes later, Abram called. "Change of scale," he said. "Healthcare fraud unit confirms. Pike is a cooperating informant in a forged medical records ring. They have audio and video of last night's transaction. Chain of custody is iron." Morning made it official. In the hallway, a woman with quiet posture and a badge introduced herself. Special Agent Lila Donovan, white collar and healthcare fraud. She shook my hand, then spoke for the record even to the air. S.A. Donovan. For the record, Mr. Rourke paid a cooperating witness for falsified medical files. To me, softer. Your live stream brought witnesses out of the wood. Thank you. Inside, the clerk called the case the list of charges like a drumroll. Fraud, forgery, attempted elder abuse, identity theft. The judge was spare and deliberate. I remembered wheelhouses, how you trust the ship, because you have done the work. The prosecutor rose without theater. "We will prove intent and method," he said, and then the line that landed like a bell. "Prosecutor, this was not care, it was conquest." He began with paper. Exhibit A, the pharmacist's receipt warning me not to go home. Exhibit B, the refill audit trail flagging forged dose changes. Exhibit C, the call log to capacity letter mills. Exhibit D, the title office incident log with the clerk's round initials and the word hold. Then he asked to play the midnight audio. The room dimmed. My son's voice filled oak. "We don't need her to be broken, just documentably unsafe." Tamsin's followed, precise as a ledger. Title office first, then conservatorship. Pike can paper the trail. And then the line that made my hands go cold even now, switching meds just enough to worry a doctor. In the juror box, 2 heads tilted the same way, as if remembering. The ordinary witnesses stitched the map. The pharmacist testified to refusing requests that smelled wrong and to the call pressing for cognitive decline language. The title officer read the lobby log like ship's orders. A neighbor described me counting buoys at dawn for 30 years and never once leaving a burner on. Then Ivy. plain sweater, upright spine, oath spoken clean. The prosecutor kept to short questions and let her build the dock board by board. "What did you hear after your grandmother left?" "They said they would hide her keys," she answered, "move her papers, make her documentably unsafe, call someone named Pike to craft medical files and a precautionary will. If it all went wrong, they would say I stole her bracelets. Teenage mistake sells." "Did you record any of this?" "I did. I also kept a calendar, times, places, phone calls." He paused. "Is there anything else the jury should know?" She breathed once. "I'm pregnant," she said. "The father is a teacher. My parents told me the pregnancy would make it easier for people to forgive me if I took the blame. I will not be the mask they wear." The defense stood to move the story off the plan and on to me. "Defense, Mrs. Whitaker is confused." I kept my voice steady. "Me, steady. I am many things. Confused isn't one." I turned to the jurors. I counted pills, photographed labels, recorded statements, and filed motions before breakfast. 3 independent clinicians examined me last week. Their reports are in your binders. Abram walked the court through them. 3 doctors, 3 signatures, 3 identical conclusions. I was sound and capable of directing my affairs. The judge admitted them without drama. The state called S.A. Donovan. She explained the Bureau's investigation, Medicare anomalies, patient complaints. An informant recruited out of a ring that sold histories, safety letters, and backdated notes. She laid out process the way a navigator lays out fixes. Who collected the footage, who sealed the evidence, who wore the camera, who signed the log. Then the diner video. The screen showed Caleb sliding into a booth across from Pike. Audio clicked in. Greetings, the soft shuffle of a folder, bills counted under the table. Pike's neutral voice reciting deliverables, medical history suggesting cognitive decline, safety letter to reassure third parties, language consistent with guardianship filings. The camera caught Pike's hand writing a first name that matched mine and a note to align dates with pharmacy. I watched the jury watch the screen. The prosecutor followed with clips from my stream, not the applause, just the receipts, the pharmacist's note under the pill bottle, the audit trail, the capacity call log, the title office stamp, the 2 live calls where concern tried to wear the costume of care. The clips were short and exact. The room did the addition itself. Cross-examination tried for fog. The defense asked S.A. Donovan whether informants get deals. "Sometimes," she said, "when truth arrives with evidence." He asked Ivy whether she hoped to benefit financially. "No," she said. "I hope to be believed." He asked whether my stream was vindictive. The prosecutor objected, sustained. By late afternoon, the keel was set. The title officer returned with the original lobby log. The clerk identified her initials. The pharmacist, hands folded to keep them still, read her warning aloud. A co-op fisherman said he didn't always like my advice about knots, but he trusted it because boats that tie the way I tell them to don't go missing. The gallery laughed, once a relief valve, and stilled. In closing, the prosecutor stacked method, motive, means, and moment. The river of paper they meant to float me down, and the rocks they hid beneath it. He ended where he'd begun, with documents. This was not care, it was conquest. The defense asked the jurors to picture well-meaning worry gone a shade too far. He did not mention cash. He called guardianship a mercy, sometimes it is, and invited them to confuse mercy with management. He asked them to imagine the midnight talk as something else. The jury had heard it already. The judge's instructions were exact. Guardianship is lawful when it protects, criminal when it steals. Medication changes require consent. Paper is only as holy as the truth inside it. He sent them out, carrying law and weather. We waited the way pilots wait for fog to lift quiet, hands busy with nothing. I counted breaths as bells. Ivy's sleeve touched mine. We shared a little strength. 2 hours later, the door opened. The 4-person stood. The clerk took a single sheet. On the charge of fraud, she read, guilty. A sound like rigging in wind. On the charge of forgery, guilty. On the charge of attempted elder abuse, guilty. On the charge of identity theft, guilty. I did not close my eyes. I let them be open to this day I had earned with documents and stubbornness. Ivy cried without folding. Abram exhaled through his nose, a prayer hidden in a sigh. I thought of Samira's hands at the window. Sentencing came a week later. Same oak, same cold light. More elders on the benches maybe for me, mostly for themselves. The judge looked at each defendant and then down at his notes, as if trying to find the cleanest sentence for a crooked act. Elder guardianship is a duty, not a weapon, he said. He named the harm: attempted theft of a home and pension, deliberate efforts to seed records with fiction, a scheme to profit from false incapacity. He noted the Bureau's case against the ring and the role my case had played in moving it forward. The math matched the weight. Caleb to 12 years in state custody, Tamsin to 10, restitution ordered. Injunctions against contact except through counsel. Orders to notify the court of any attempt to move money or property under my name. Outside, cameras waited and then lowered. Reporters asked what I would do next. Eat, I said. Sleep. Keep the door propped for the next person who needs it. A young journalist with a tremor in her pen thanked me and asked if she could link our checklist. Please. We crossed the square. People nodded the way you nod to a pilot you trust 2 degrees shy of salute, 1 shy of prayer. Jules texted a plate cam still that put Caleb's car in the diner lot exactly when Pike's camera said it was. Abram sent a single-period lawyer's amen. S.A. Donovan met us on the steps and said I had changed the timeline. I told her I had only put the truth where people could see it. She smiled like somebody who likes her job because it returns time to strangers. I put my palm on the courthouse rail and let the cool stone answer. Justice does not give back what almost happened, but it gives back horizon, something straight to steer by. Ivy squeezed my arm and asked if it was over. Enough is, I said. The rest is living. We walked to the market. The fishmonger wrapped 2 fillets and offered them on the house, then let me pay because boundaries are kindness too. The harbor smelled like salt and work. The buoys ticked right. The town felt possible again. At home, I set the compass on the table and watched the needle settle. The line from the prosecutor echoed in my head, but it was the judge's sentence that stayed. Duty, not weapon. I thought of the pharmacist's note, the title log, the live stream chat, the diner video, the jurors who listened like adults, the oak that held us all. I made dinner, and then I did what I said I would. I ate, and I slept, and I kept the door ajar. In the morning, I wrote a list for the Harbor Guardians Clinic. Abram and I had sketched on a napkin receipts, audits, logs, witnesses. The ring would face its own trial. Ours had run its course. Outside, the ferry horn lifted once, low and sure. I answered it by breathing, and by believing the channel was clear enough to carry us forward. Justice arrived like tide, steady and undeniable, at last. The gallery exhaled, a low wave crossing polished wood. By the time summer burned off the last of the spring fog, I had moved into the small, bright apartment above the Maritime Museum. Morning swam through tall windows and pooled on the floorboards, warming the tide charts I keep rolled in a basket by the desk. From the balcony I could see the education dock, the old crane, and my own reflection in the museum glass, one woman, unhurried, carrying groceries and a clipboard. The cottage remains mine, shingled, sturdy, and exactly where I left it, untouched by thieves or pity. I visit to sweep sand from the porch and check the gutters, then leave it to the swallows. Home now is wherever the light asks me to set down my coat. Ivy lives 3 blocks inland in a narrow walk-up with a neighbor who waters plants when rehearsals run late. She is finishing school, seeing a counselor, and letting the cello resurface in her hands. I listen from the hallway sometimes, the bow drawing out a long note that sounds like a boat easing off a mooring. We meet at the Lighthouse Cafe on Thursdays for scones and lists. She keeps court dates on her calendar beside tests and recitals. I keep her courage topped up with tea and the promise of rides at dawn. Neither of us pretends this was simple. We practice honest sentences and leave the rest unsaid until we can bear it. Abram and I filed the papers for the Harbor Guardians Fund on a Tuesday that smelled like rope and new paint. The mission is plain: fight guardianship, abuse, and train seniors to spot the first paper cuts. We hold clinics at the museum classroom and at the union hall, teaching people how to read refill logs, ask for audit trails, and request lobby incident copies without apology. A hotline rings on a desk by the model schooner. Retired nurses, title clerks, and law students take shifts. Jules runs a short course on pulling your own credit reports and freezing them before anyone impersonates concern. We printed a card the size of a tide table. Consent for meds, witness everything, document dates, photograph counts, and never surrender your keys to someone who thinks help begins with a pocket. On Fridays, I take students out to plant eelgrass in the shallows, where the current moves like a slow idea. We kneel in the water, gloved hands pushing sprigs into sand, the skiff bobbing at its painter. A heron watches like a tired professor. I talk about holding lines, gentle and firm, about ecosystems that recover when neighbors work together. Me, to students, a channel is safest when everyone respects the markers. They nod like they understand, and then they actually do because we mark our transplant beds with little stakes and ribbons. And boats give us a berth without being asked. The water clears. Tiny fish show up as punctuation. Letters arrive from the prison in envelopes the color of old rain. I do not open them. A line is not cruelty. It is seamanship. The injunction against contact still stands, and so does my boundary. I wish neither hunger nor harm on anyone. I wish consequence. Ivy knows when they write because the air shifts. I hand her tea and we let the envelope sit under a paperweight shaped like a gull until the recycling day takes them away. She keeps therapy appointments, writes her declarations updates when needed, and returns to etudes that ask her to climb and descend without wobble. Both of us are learning steadiness again. The skiff I flirted with at the brokerage is mine, now a working little thing named Portage because she carries more than weight. On a windless evening, I idle past the bell buoy, throttle down, and let the bow point itself between markers 3 and 4. The channel is honest. The dredge did its winter scraping well. Harbor lights come on one by one, like polite stars. From this water, the town looks undecorated and therefore beautiful. Nets drying, teenagers laughing on the pier, the museum's windows holding back a warm square of history. I check my bearings, smile at nothing in particular, and speak aloud to the engine as old pilots do. The channel is clear. So am I. At the fund's first open house, chairs filled before the coffee cooled. We handed out laminated checklists, taught people how to save PDFs, and practiced asking clerks for logs without apology. Samira came after her shift, sat in the back, and left before the applause found her. We didn't name her. We didn't need to. Gratitude knows how to travel without ceremony. When the room emptied, I turned the lights off row by row and felt the building breathe like a ship at dock. Before I turn for home, I stand at the console and say what I want saved in the air. Me. Family is loyalty practiced, not blood presumed. I love the tide because it never lies. Ivy tuning cello. Grandma, thank you for not letting me drown. I answer her the only way that makes sense, by keeping the markers bright and the phone on, by showing up with sandwiches and a list, by sitting in the front row when she plays. We trim the line, ease the throttle, and take the last of the light back through water we have made safer for others. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart even a little, that's our greatest joy. If you'd like, please share your thoughts in the comments. We'll keep bringing you stories that stay with you, so please consider subscribing to the channel. See you in the next video.